Welcome to the Esports Business Network podcast. I am Trent Knox, the founder and CEO of Esports Business Network. I'll be the host on this episode of the EBN podcast, EBNP number 58. Our guest is Jay Melamed, the CEO of XP League. In this podcast, Jay and I talk about the process of building an esports tournament platform and franchise, the state of scholastic esports, and how to adapt in an ever-evolving esports industry. Enjoy.
This is the future. Evolution. This is the future.
Welcome back to another Esports Business Network podcast. Today's show has Jay Melamed, the CEO of XP League. Welcome to the show, Jay.
Hey, Trent. Great to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Yeah. So I've seen a couple things of your company on social media. Mentioned in pre-production a little bit about Chase Sommer going to your event in Raleigh. So we'll get into XP League in detail later on the show. But first off, let's get to know Jay a little bit more. What brought you into the gaming and esports industry?
Okay, so it was kind of a roundabout way of getting involved, but I guess the key to getting into the industry itself was driven by my kids, from being a dad who is actively involved with what my kids are into and what they're interested in. And I've got four kids. Three of them are 12. They're triplets. So that's pretty intense in its own right. And then I've got a younger guy who is 9, and he's like all about gaming and anything digital. I mean, the kid lives in memes, doesn't watch television ever, only watches Twitch and YouTube. And during the early stages of the pandemic, we were trying to find ways to get the kids to engage with other kids their age. And my wife owns a Code Ninjas, which is a youth coding franchise. Yeah. So we were looking at ways to use that space in other creative outlets. So we spoke to some other Code Ninjas locations, and they were interested in kind of running some esports matches. So we put together an Overwatch team, and they put together one, and we pilot tested it. And about 2 weeks into it, we realized, man, this is really cool. And so that was kind of how we got into it. But the way that, the main driving force for me was trying to find a way for my son, my younger son, because my older son had played athletics before. My daughters had played, soccer, and they've done other team-based programs. But my youngest, I've said this on other conversations, but he doesn't want to sweat. The dude has zero interest in ever being on a team sport. I mean, he's got it's just there's nothing there, never happening, and I would never push him into doing something he didn't want to do. So yeah, coming up with a way to get him to embrace what he loves and be involved in that was a great opportunity for us to look at, well, how can we make this look like team sports on the gaming side? So that's how I got into the industry. But obviously I'm not young, I'm not old, I'm a first generation gamer. I'm part of that group where I grew up with, I'm old enough to have played an NES, but I also had a PlayStation, right? So, never started playing PC games until recently. I was playing Call of Duty against my son, and I realized that he was way better than I was with a mouse and keyboard. And so I immediately had to go out and get myself a gaming PC so that I could hold my own with him. I just was not adept at controller play against him. Wow.
I was going to ask you that, if you were a gamer yourself growing up, it looks like you have a lot of experience. If you looked at your LinkedIn from the real estate market and finance and stuff like that. So when you bring up Code Ninjas, that's interesting. I never seen that vantage point, that vertical coming into the industry. It's honestly like the first time I've ever heard of it. And I know Code Ninjas, seen them before. Are they sort of cafes, gaming cafes, or
No,
like,
no,
I mean, PC
completely different.
cafes?
No, it's a franchise
Right.
where you're dealing with kids. It's actually the same age group that XP League works with, but
Right.
this
Yeah.
like 7 to 14, 8 to 15 range, where kids come in and learn to code. So it's pretty.
What sort of computers do they have in there? Do they have like gaming
No,
level computers, or what kind of
no.
computers do they have there?
It varies based on locations, but generally they're as inexpensive as you can get. Where
Okay.
They don't take a lot of computing power, right? So like most places use i3 chips. They don't have integrated graphics cards, and
Wow.
you can't game on them. So when we decided to start doing this, we had to immediately go out and buy gaming machines for the kids to play on, because we do everything is PC based.
So your facility at Code Ninjas is basically a gaming cafe.
We flip it into one. So the way that XP League works is we're a pop-up arena, right? So each location, each individual franchise owner gets, they generally look at all gaming laptops, right? So that they can show up anywhere. That doesn't have to be a Code Ninjas. It can be anywhere. It can be your local YMCA. It can be a Boys and Girls Club. It can be, a community college, like, you mentioned Chase. We've talked about going and using their arena. So finding a space to play is part of the fun of being an XP League owner. So, if you're a franchise owner and a league commissioner, you'll find different locations and you pop up your arena wherever you have the opportunity to create space to play. And so you throw up a pop-up sign that says, XP League, explains what you guys are up to. You set up your laptops, you roll out your switch, plug it in, and go. So it's,
the reason why I wondered that, okay, so if you have a LAN center, a dedicated LAN center, it's really hard to monetize the space outside of arcade transactions and one-off tournaments. So I was curious if that Code Ninjas, you had the flexibility to upgrade those PCs and then during the off times utilize the space for other purposes than just the Code Ninja branding. Is it franchised in that way? Because that sounds like an amazing business model if you're able to execute on something like that.
So they're two completely segregated businesses. A few of the owners that are XP League franchise owners also own Code Ninjas, and they've done something similar to that, where at the end of the day, whenever, like, let's say Code Ninjas hours are 2 to 6, and at 6 o'clock they start their practices, and so they put away their their Dell laptops and they roll out their MSIs, and kids come in the game.
So Code Ninjas are not desktops; they're laptops.
Yeah, almost exclusively. I mean, I'm sure some locations might have desktops. And I know of some locations that purchased an XP League at the same time they purchased a Code Ninjas franchise, and so they kind of plan ahead and bought equipment that's dual purpose. But again, it's not, we have a lot of owners that have nothing to do with Code Ninjas, and they play out of all kinds of spaces. But
it's a lot of versatility with the XP League because it's a modular mobile business model, and it's franchisable. We'll get into that a little bit more in depth soon. But it can also live on top of another business model like a Code Ninjas. That's the reason why I wanted to emphasize that and highlight that.
Yeah, it's a great like store within a store model. We've talked to other youth-based businesses to see if their owners would be interested in doing this. We also have talked to a lot of LAN centers. We've talked to. We're actually in conversations with a couple of the big national ones, but then local ones, because like you said, LAN centers, there's a lot of challenge to monetizing this like recurrent revenue. And so by having XP League participate in there, you can either have the LAN center be a franchisee so they can run XP League in their space, or they partner with a local franchisee that, just comes in and sets a flat rate that they agree to use the space at and the machines at. And so now you have a franchisee in that location that doesn't have to come out of pocket on buying an infrastructure and buying a bunch of laptops or other equipment. They're able to just say, okay, great. Well, this LAN center generally charges $6 to $8 an hour. Hey, if I guarantee that I'll have 30 kids in here 3 nights a week, what can we work out and come up with an agreed rate to use the space and have a space use agreement.
Very cool. So let's step back a little bit, because I don't really introduce XP League yet, but let's go to that now. With XP League, what verticals are they in? We've talked a little bit about brick and mortar. We've talked a little bit about modularity and mobility. We haven't really dived into the tournament portion. What are the different verticals the XP League proper is handling right now?
Yeah. So the way to think about it is really, we are Little League. We are conventional sports in the esports world. So we don't have, we don't do tournaments. We don't have a bunch of different verticals where we've got, our model is really simple, and it's really easy for parents who have nothing to, have zero idea about how the esports world works, finds it really intimidating. We come in there and we educate them on the idea that, look, the difference between a child coming in and participating in XP League and a kid playing on a soccer team, the only difference is mouse and keyboard versus soccer ball and net. Everything else is the same. Our coaches go through the Positive Coaching Alliance. We have a partnership with them, so we train the coaches on PCA. We have weekly practices, weekly scrimmages and matches, and so the players are in the same physical space, but they could be playing teams, anywhere in the world. So if I'm on an Overwatch team, the other 5 folks that I'm playing with are sitting in the same room as me with my coach, and we've got, our strategy worked out, and we're working on some great Positive Coaching Alliance core values, like filling each other's emotional tanks or whatever. And, then we could be playing a team in, we're in Raleigh, we could be playing a team as far as Monterey, California, or Saskatchewan, because we have some Canadian franchisees. And so the kids get to, they get to play and scrimmage against teams all over North America.
Very cool. And so when what's sort of the onboarding process for the customer? The parents, I assume, not the kids. And are they purchasing PCs, or are they? How does the process work there? Because you mentioned they're sort of similar to the traditional youth leagues, and you have different levels. You have your select, your varsity, your
travel,
your different sort of. I guess they're leagues, but also like skill levels.
Yeah.
And so the higher the skill level, the more you're bought in to the program.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we actually have it structured a few different ways. So the way that we do it, and we're actually, now that we're about a year into it and have had some lessons learned, we're adding some new opportunities and product lines, I guess service lines, into the model. But we break it up right now into 2 different segments. There's XP League Silver and XP League Gold. Now, in conventional youth athletics, that would be age group, right? So you'd have like your U12 kids, and then your U8 or whatever. But we break it up by skill and ability, and how well, when we're talking about a game like Overwatch, how well do they understand the meta of the game? How skilled are they on Flick and other esports related skill sets? And so kids who are really strong move to the Gold League, and kids who are newer to it will play on that silver side of it. And so there's an opportunity to be brand new, which in fact, a lot of times we have kids who are coming in as young as 7 or 8, and they've never played Overwatch before. So the reason I keep bringing up Overwatch is it's a really great game for this type of league, because of that, two model where it forces communication. You can't be a great Overwatch player if you don't work with your team, if you don't have great comms. So I like using it as a good example, but we have other, the kids play Rocket League, they play, we have Fortnite Battle Royales, and we have, we're releasing Valorant in September.
Very cool. Fortnite Battle Royale, Valorant in September. So, and Rocket League as well. Rocket League has to be, is it one of your most popular?
Actually, I would say I'd say it's tied with Overwatch. I'd say
Okay.
Fortnite right now is our most popular.
Oh, wow.
You got to think about the age group that we're in, right? So we're in the 8 to 15. And so that like 10 to 12-year-old world, those kids like, they eat, sleep, and breathe Fortnite. We do it squads, by the way. So, all of our games and anything that we will get into in the future. And we're looking at other titles like everybody's talking about Splitgate. And so we've been playing with that a little bit this week and seeing how that might be a good title for us to play with. I love Knockout City. I think that would be a really great title to start incorporating. So we'll see how that goes. But everything is team based. So when they do play Fortnite, it's not, dumped into solos battle royale. They do play squads, and we force a lot of communication between the kids to make sure that they're picking up on all those core values and the sportsmanship and life skills that you get from team sports.
Right. And so you talked about adding other FPS games. So there's definitely a theme around what type of games in the FPS genre you guys are playing. The more cartoon-based, more animated graphical games. And so you guys are not
we're not moving to like
or the Call of Duties or the CSGOs?
No.
Okay, gotcha.
We're talking about perhaps like on the if we move into an older group of kids, if we expand our age bracket into into that 15 to 17, 18 range, we would consider it. But that right now with the age group that we're in, we still, even with the really cartoony ones, we still have to answer that question about, well, hey, it's a first person shooter. Is that appropriate for a 10-year-old to play? And what you find out is most of these kids are playing it at home anyway. Even Switch players are playing Fortnite. And
I was about to ask you about that specifically because we didn't mention fighting games at all, any FGC. But one of the games that has a competitive community that's in the sort of FPS genre is Splatoon 2. And I was curious if you guys are moving into Nintendo, games at all, or how you guys are approaching Nintendo.
So it's funny that you say that. Right now, everything is PC based, but we have had some conversation internally about, well, if we introduce a Switch game, but it's not a Switch FPS game that we're thinking about. We're looking at the new Pokemon MOBA.
Unite.
Yeah, exactly. So Pokemon Unite, which is the new MOBA, because we get a lot of conversation. It's funny. You talk to anyone who's a coach within XP League, a lot of the owners and folks who are just interested in what we're doing. The conversation always comes up, hey, are you going to get the kids into League? And it's a hard conversation because, we have to balance two things. We have to balance the excitement around what we're doing, but also the interest in particular games. And there's just not the same level of interest in like the big MOBA names in, when you're dealing with kids who are, under 13, because we do have kids, that are 14, 15 years old, but our bulk, I'd say is the bulk of the kids are in that 8 to 12, 13 range. And they just haven't started playing League yet. But the conversations that I've had around Pokemon Unite have been really strong about how it's a great intro to that world, where Wild Rift seemed like it might have been one, but it's still pretty complicated.
Yeah, mobile games. So how do you approach adding a new game to you're offering? Because you say you're bringing Valorant in September. What about those sort of tier 2 games like Rogue Company, another one that's coming out which wouldn't be a good fit, I don't think, for what we're doing here, is X Defiant, which is coming out from Ubisoft, which is sort of like the I guess the after the whole
Siege or
not related to Siege. It's after the Division 2 sort of time frame, and so it uses the same assets as that. Or you mentioned Splitgate, or the other one that's the other one's very similar. I forget what it is right now, but it's sort of Portal based as well.
Portal.
Well, Portal is sort of like, there's no competitive nature to that, but really, it's I think it's another EA game, or by DICE or something like that, but I forget what it is off the top of my head. What's the process of adding another offering to you? How do you do your research and development, whether that's going to be a good fit, product market fit?
So there's a couple stages to it. The first one is I asked my 12-year-old son. He's my go-to. I'd love to get his opinion on what he thinks is cool, because he's a really honest, great sounding board. He's not gonna tell me what I want to hear. He's gonna tell me oh man, Dad, that's like that's awful. Like you do not want to have that game. I pitched him this great idea that I had where I want to look at putting together a Roblox game for the younger group, where we create, we hire some developers and we create an XP League, FPS within that Roblox world. And he looked at me and he's like, you'll kill XP League. Like, you'll take the soul out of it. You can't bring Roblox in. Although I can tell you that anyone in the 8 to 10 range, I think, would be super stoked about it. But that's my first pressure test. If it passes the Lobos test, we can then kind of look into what it would take to release it. And so what we then do is spend some time playing it in house. I've got all the employees that work for XP League HQ are gamers. You come by here and any evening or afternoon, and you can hear everybody screaming through the hallways because we're playing something, whether it was testing out Knockout City or, this past week playing Splitgate, things like that. But to roll it out, we want to make sure that in our evaluation, we're seeing, okay, how important is communication in this? How important is teamwork? What's the level of complexity to the game? Would this be something that kids would get bored of? Is there enough in here where there's enough meta to make it fun for more than just like, hey, let's go out and play, where it can actually be competitive and at different stages? And then, can we develop coaching guides around it? Because that's also really important. One of the things that we do as the franchisor is we put together a really robust coaching guide and platform so that the local XP League in any town, North Austin, we've got a location there. We want to make sure that our franchisee and his coaches can take that information, digest it. They don't have to be an expert in the game, but they can play it and teach it and be a resource for those kids as if they were an expert in the game. And so they have all that at their disposal. So we have to build all that into it. And that's why it's taken us so long to release Valorant. We've been talking about pushing it out for, it was one of our original titles, but we needed the time to put together all those pieces before we pushed it out.
Very interesting. You mentioned North Austin. What facility is that?
So he's actually one of the Code Ninjas owners that's in our network. So he has a Code Ninjas location in North Austin. His name's Chris Wells. He's a great guy. And so he runs XP League out of his Code Ninjas locations off ours.
It's not the one in Cedar Park?
Now you're asking me questions that I should probably know off the top of my head, but I don't.
Yeah, I think, well, it may not be, but that's really far north of Austin. But yeah, that's interesting. And so the next question I was going to ask you, because you brought up network, what you mentioned competitiveness against cross network, but intra network, is there transfers, or if a family moves, like what's the onboarding process at the new facility? What's that kind of like?
Yeah, so it's open season to season. So you're registering. So actually, going back to the onboarding question, how does it work from a parent's perspective? So we have open houses and skills assessments. You kind of think of it like a traditional tryout, except it's not a tryout because everyone makes a team. It's more of an introduction for them to see how we coach, what the model's like, learning about the whole values-based component of XP League. But then also we run the kids through AIM labs. We see how they perform in these different FPS skill sets. So AIM Lab was really great, and they're one of our partners. They curated a training platform for us, for our kids, based on the games that we play. We use that to evaluate them during the skills assessment, and then we run them through the meta of the different games, and we let them play depending if they think they're really high tier, we ratchet it up and put them on a team to see how they do and how they play. And then at the end of it, we can have a really good picture of where they should be within our league and what team, whether it's a gold team or a silver team, or we also try not to stack the teams for regular season play. I don't want to take all like the stars and put them on one team and then, make it boring for them during the season where they don't have, challenge to grow and develop. And we also don't want to demotivate those other kids, because it is, at the end of the day, it's competitive, but it's recreational. We do have our big regional event once a year, and we do have our big North American finals where we kind of consolidate the best kids from every team and put them on a team to represent their location.
And on a local and regional level, are you guys integrated into the local school boards and the local after school programs in order to like amplify the recruiting process or getting people involved in XP League?
Yeah, for sure. We're starting to do that more and more. So one of the things that we're releasing, this new service that I was telling you about, this new, product line, is an academy model, not your conventional esports academy model where you think, hey, this is going to be, a training program is kind of like minor league. This is more of a conventional academy idea where the kids will come in once or twice a week and, go through a curriculum that has scrimmages and things like that, but they're not specifically on a team. It's just to learn the game and to develop. And we're building that out so that can be used as a camp model, as an after school program. In fact, one of our locations in California is working with a private school that's incorporated that actually as an elective at their school. So it makes it great because we're turnkey. So if you're a middle school and you don't have the resources to put an esports program together, you could reach out to our local franchisee. We can show up and pop up an arena where the only thing that you have to provide us with is space and internet. We do everything else. You don't have to convince a parent or teacher to hang out after hours to be the coach. We handle that for you. You don't have to do a huge fundraiser to raise $20,000 in equipment, because we roll out and we've got our laptops and our keyboards and our headsets and we pop up the arena. So it allows us to incorporate the scholastic programs into schools that wouldn't have the resources to do so otherwise. And I think you'll see that a lot in the elementary and middle school range, where high schools, through Play Versus and High School Esports League, are starting to get more mature in the esports world. The elementary and middle school space was kind of left out of that, and I think it's also challenging for them to raise funds to do that. I don't think they'll. I think they're a long ways off from getting that kind of funding to put programs together for esports.
I was just kind of sitting there listening to you and reflecting back on my life and thinking about the access I had to this sort of service or anything like that. And all the things I can remember, when I was in elementary school, that I'd go to an after school, like kind of daycare situation. They would have a PlayStation there. I'd play Tekken, and then I grew up a little bit and I'd go to a different place, and the after school program might have like a Nintendo 64 or an Xbox or something like that. This is actually, at this point, I'm going to two places, recreational center and an after school program. And then I'm in high school and I'm in a class called business BCIS, business computer integrated science, something like that, right? And all we would ever do is try to figure out how to proxy some server so we could play a video game instead of do the work that we were trying to do. And now the kids, so long as like there's an agreement with like the school board's um, internet technology department, they have access to these video games that when I was growing up, there was no chance
Yeah.
you were allowed to play any of these games in the school or even after school because the infrastructure just wasn't there. You couldn't plug in your Xbox to the school internet and play Madden. That
Yeah,
wasn't
no
happening.
kidding, no kidding. Yeah, and I'm
And
probably
so,
15 years older than you. It was certainly not something that we could do back then. I grew up in the age where parents were yelling at you for too much TV time. You're sitting too close to the TV. You're gonna ruin your eyes. Now then it moved to those video games. You're rotting your brain. You can't play this for that long. And now we're at a point where the kids are essentially born with an iPad in their hand, and everything is like it's second nature. It's innate to them. They understand. I feel like kids are born with like a map to operating system, especially iOS. Like they know how to get through it before anyone else does. So it's impressive. But
a testament to that is when I was in middle school, and I mentioned in high school, but in middle school, I was also in a computer class where we would try to hack the server so that we could get on MySpace or Friendster or whatever it was in order to update our profiles and like add and edit our websites and stuff like that. When I was in middle school, I can remember this, and like I don't think about it that much, but there was a point to what I was trying to say is essentially that the access has gotten better. Playing addicting games and whatnot was what it was then. Now it's more robust, serious video games that mainstream developers are making. And now they're curtailing those games to have an offering for educational programs. Roblox is one, for example, that has like a dedicated learning management system for I think middle schools and high schools. I don't know if they get to the elementary level.
That's actually one of the big programs. So, I'm trying to remember the language that Roblox is, Lua. That's a really common language to teach kids. Actually, not to go back to the code ninja side of it, but the way that works is you belt up based on how long you've been with the program and what language you're on and stuff. And so when you get to like kind of the mid tier, that's what they work in. They work in Lua, and every kid who comes in, all they're excited about is getting there because they want to play Roblox, and they want to be able to code in Roblox. That's really great. And then you mentioned earlier before we got on the call that you're going to be on a panel with some folks from Epic. Epic's scholastic department is amazing. They've done some really fantastic things. So, we've had conversations with them about putting curriculum together for summer camps where kids are learning how to, not only use Fortnite Creative, but actually get into some of that Unreal Engine stuff. And that's through the XP League side of things. And they just, they eat it up, but it's, things that we never would have thought of, when I was, younger. You mentioned Tekken, right? So we weren't getting any backdoor code on how to create new locations for Eddie to play at, right?
Mm-hmm. No, that's for certain not the case. That I think is still some of a controversy in general, because a lot of developers want to maintain some superior ownership of license over IP. So they're like, if there's any changes to the game, it kind of destroys their trademarks and kind of makes it very hard for them to control the game.
Yeah. It's that's a tough one. And you've seen some really and geez,
Mm-hmm.
Dota 2 is the biggest esport in the world. I mean, arguably, that started as, somebody that messed around with somebody else's game and wrote something over it. Right. And that's where that was born. And, now it's, the biggest prize pool in the world.
Yeah. And that idea translated into a different IP of its own in League of Legends and all MOBAs at this point. But yeah, Defense of the Ancients on, a mod on Warcraft back in the day, and now it's became I think it is the number one, at least prize pool wise.
Yeah, for sure.
The largest prize pool. So that's what I was actually I went in a little sort of a different direction, but I was gonna ask you, like, how do you guys approach when a game gets a patch or the meta changes in the game and it affects like the social aspect of the program, because the developer can patch the game at any point in time and basically nerf whatever agent.
That's
want.
the fun of it. And that's part of our, that's part of our homework at XP League HQ, is making sure that we're paying attention to that, so that if, when a new Overwatch patch comes in, we've got to let everybody know that, hey, Baptiste just got, he just got buffed on his thing. And then, we've got, somebody else had some, they were nerfed, or this map is being altered, and we've got to get all that stuff out. I'll tell you a funny story. When we were getting ready to do our regional tournament for Fortnite, where, you've got these kids coming in who've been playing, together for months and months and months. We schedule when the regionals was going to be like, probably 6 weeks before it happens. And 3 days before our regionals was when Fortnite had the big update where they put out the UFOs in it. So you want to talk about changing a map and changing the meta of a game? Like, all of a sudden these kids, everything is, they know what they're doing. They know the weapons. We've been practicing. And this weekend, we're going to play. All of a sudden it's, well, now I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with this railgun. What does that even do? And these spaceships, whoa, you can fly them? How does this thing work? Like, oh, wait, it crashed. But wait, if I wait a minute, it'll recharge. I can fly it again. So that threw everybody for a heck of a loop. And it was a lot of fun to see how the kids adapted to it. But they had about 3 days to figure it out.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned the regional stuff, you guys do large scale events as well?
So we don't really do large scale events per se. Every year, and this was our first annual, we'll have what we call North American Finals, and that is the invitational for the kids who have played and have been the top players within XP League, and we invite them to a location to get together and play it out to see how they perform in a exciting arena style setting. And so this year, our first North American Finals was this past weekend, and we did it in Raleigh. And that's where you'd mentioned that you saw some photos from Chase from Wake Tech being there. So it was really, really unbelievably fantastic. Being a first time, event planner, tournament operator, baptism by fire, I think it went really well. And in fact, we talked to a lot of folks who are, veterans in the esports world who were there, and they were shocked at just the scale. Exactly. We were, not that we didn't run into issues, because we did. We had, you get 100 kids trying to log into their Overwatch accounts at the same time. Everyone puts in the wrong password. And so Activision Blizzard blocks our IP in the middle of this because they think there's a DoD attack, because all of a sudden, the accounts are being hacked because every kid forgot their password. So we're running around and scrambling, putting VPNs on all these machines to try to get that, phone calling everyone that we know that might have a connection on a Saturday that could probably help us get into Blizzard to whitelist our IP. Man, it was crazy, but it worked and we pulled it off. And it was, what I like to refer to is the fact that while we have these issues going on, and we had, we'd have a row of machines and a kid, kids are 11, 12-year-old kids. They're fidgety. They kicked out the power cord and knocked out 12 machines in the middle of a round. Just all these nutty things that were happening. And we're scrambling to just, keep chill and make it work and do the right thing. And I think what it did was enabled us to model the behavior that we talk about, but kind of walk the walk, which is things are going to go wrong, man. Life is tough. Things are going to go wrong. You're going to expect it to be one way, and it's not going to work out that way. But it's all about how you respond to it. And so if you roll with it, stay positive, stay focused, pivot, it works out in the end, and you can handle it. And so I think the kids got to see that firsthand, and the feedback from the parents was really strong.
Yeah. It's one of those things when I think about leagues, tournament platforms, operators, admins, because the developers own the games, you have to have a relationship with them when it comes to operating at scale, because you get I don't know how many people I've talked to have gotten cease and desist, for Call of Duty or because of Smash or what have you, and it's difficult because the system isn't necessarily designed to make that very easy for you to build up that relationship. I think it's getting easier, but it's definitely been very difficult. And then on the hardware side, you never know what could go wrong. Like for instance, DreamHack 2018, first time I ever went to DreamHack, the facilities, power, their not the generator, but the whatever they call the node just blew, and so the whole facility went down, no power.
Oh man.
And so that was very, very, very controversial. And so it happens. Things happen.
Yeah, exactly. It was a as I said, it was a great opportunity to model the behaviors that we talk about all the time, like week in, week out. We were running around to fill each other's emotional tanks and keep us focused on there's a thing that we teach through the Positive Coaching Alliance called mistake rituals. And if you mess up, you've got a mistake ritual that your team comes up with, and you do that and you move on. So, that could be like pretending to like flush the toilet. Like, I made a mistake, man, let's flush that one away. And like, just focus on it, acknowledge it, and then get past it, because we got a lot of way to go.
That's so funny you say that, because I think that's something you learn from being a gamer in many ways, because if you ever had a PlayStation in the I'd say 20, not earlier than that, like 2006 to the 2015 timeframe,
Sure.
There was some network issue with with the PlayStation Network, where you would have to flush the DNS in order for the console to reconnect without a strict NAT. And so you would have to do these processes, and it's sort of processes that you learn as a gamer only by playing games. And it kind of is an advantage in many different ways, and you learn these life skills. And I'm sure that your program is teaching life skills and things that, in other formats, like teamwork is really great, but, getting concussions isn't.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
there's other things that out there, and as being someone who's played traditional sports and tried to compete in the amateur level in esports and stuff like that, it's awesome to hear that you got this program set up for the youth. But before I let you go, I want to give you the opportunity to do all your sign-offs, let people know how they can get connected with you, and anything that might be upcoming for people to get involved in.
Absolutely. Well, Trent, first of all, thanks so much for letting me come out and talk to you. This was a ton of fun. I'm always pretty stoked to talk about what we're doing, because we're really passionate about it. But yeah, for those listening, and if you're interested in participating, or you've got kids in our age group that are interested, xpleague.gg. You can find us there. Look for locations near you. We've got 27 operating locations, 46 in total. So we'll have a lot more coming up. in the next couple months, and we are actively looking. So if you're listening to this and you're interested in figuring out how to get a career in the esports world, want to be your own boss, want to be an entrepreneur, give us a shout, because we'd love to talk to you about franchise opportunities in your market. We do want XP League everywhere.
Awesome. And how can folks connect with you? I'm connected with you on LinkedIn. Anywhere else that they can connect with you?
Sure. LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on Discord. I'm El Genio. I don't know my 4 numbers off the top of my head, but yeah, man, that's great. I just completely flaked on that one. My email address is jay.m@xpleague.gg. Feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy and open to chat. And of course, check out the website, see where we're playing.
Awesome. This has been Jay Melamed, CEO of XP League. This has been the Esports Business Network podcast. Thank you for listening. Hey all, it's Trent Knox. I wanted to let you know that I use Anchor to produce and distribute the EBN podcast. If you've never heard of Anchor FM before, it's the easiest way to start a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need in a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Hey y'all, it's Trent Knox, founder and CEO of Esports Business Network. I want to say thank you for listening to this podcast. If you're finding value in the podcast, I would greatly appreciate it if you share the podcast to your network and write a positive review on your preferred podcast platform. If you're feeling extra generous, feel free to make a contribution to our working capital accounts on Cash App or PayPal. Our username is ESPORTSBIZNET. That's Esports BizNet on both platforms. As always, we'd love for you to join our community and platform at https://www.ebn.gg. You can take advantage of a free subscription to our Bronze membership by following the directions on the homepage. Part of the Bronze membership is access to our Discord server and private membership channels. The conversation only evolves with participation from esports entrepreneurs like yourself. We need to hear about your esports business to understand how we can move the industry forward as a community. You can also join the community by joining the Facebook and LinkedIn groups. An additional goal of EBN is to move the conversation forward on your preferred social media platform. So as a last note, don't forget to follow us on social media for current events, news, and other esports related topics. Follow and subscribe to Esports Business Network on social media. Looking forward to networking with you very soon.